Hi, welcome to my tutorial video on how to digitize in JOSM environment. So in this tutorial video, you will learn how to create polygon and polyline features and assign relevant tag through JOSM. So without further ado, let's go over the step-by-step instruction on how to digitize. So first, very importantly, you need to overlay the satellite imagery so that you can identify features and trace the features. So let's go down to the JOSM. So here I open up the JOSM editor, and as you can see right now, on the right hand side, there's a layer bar. You can see the data layer. That's after you sync the data from the OSM, then you will see that there are polyline structures that's from the existing road network that the previous mapper already identified and mapped. So first you will like to turn on the satellite imageries. If you just click on the imagery tab, and you will see there's a drop down box for several default satellite imagery, including Bing, Mapbox. And so for those who also have access to a digital globe, you can also pull the satellite imagery from there. So for right now, I'm just going to turn on the Bing imagery. So click on Bing and you will see the Bing aerial imagery being added to the layers. So if we focus onto this the square cells, basically zoom in, and as you can see, the satellite imagery is not too optimal. As you can see, there's clouds on the right side, and if you keep zooming in, you probably see that on the screen it says no tile at this zoom level. That means that as you keep zooming in, it's just gonna pixelate the image, that you won't get any more resolution than you already have now. So this means that this satellite imagery is not optimal for digitization in this area. So what I suggest to do is to switch between satellite imageries and then use the one that gives you the best resolution in this specific area. Use them to map. So I'm gonna go back to imagery, and since digital globe has satellite imagery that's really powerful with high resolution, so I highly recommend for those who has access to a digital globe to use that. So let me left click on it, and again in the tracing guide describe how to add the satellite imagery through the preference tab, so you can always refer back to the tracing guide on how to do that. And now let me turn off the Bing aerial imagery. As you can see, after I adding the digital globe satellite imagery, it becomes a lot more clearer in this area. And so I just going to focus on this area. So as I keep zooming in, you can see the image start rendering, and you can see pretty clearly on the houses that's in the area, and as well as roads. So let me zoom back out a little bit. So first you have to be able to identify roads from the satellite imagery. And in the tracing can also talk about how to differentiate between different type of roads. And so for example, here I'm going to try to identify residential roads and map it out. So let me zoom back in, and you can see there are many residential roads that haven't been mapped out yet. So I'm just going to choose one of them, set an example. So the next step for digitizing the road is tracing the road by drawing nodes. And so that means that you click on, so there's a left hand side, there's a vertical bar, and then So if you see draw nodes, you just click on that, and then you choose the feature that you're interested in, and make sure if you see when I'm cursor move over here, there's the roads being highlighted. That means that there's existing roads crossing with the roads of your interest. So what you want to make sure is that your road, if it's actually connecting, you need to left click on that existing road in order to make the connection, because by left click you actually put a node there, and so that will make the two roads share a common node. So you don't want to go all the way too far out. You want to be able to monitor the change of angles as you left click along the road. So let's say I'm stopping here, just double left click. And one thing I found is really helpful is that sometimes the color scheme may make the roads hard to see, so you can always change the map paint. So if you go to view, and there should be a map paint styles, and if you can click on pot latch 2, and as you can see now, the scheme changed a little bit to make what was more invisible from the last color scheme to become more visible. So you can basically switch between those two. It just depends on what make you feel more comfortable as you map along. So let me go back to so this is the line I just mapped out, and the next step, so the next step is modify node junctions. And if we go back to the roads, you will see that the line just created I actually have already dealt with the road junction by plotting the nodes that's in the intersection between these two roads. But a lot of times you will your roads are probably cross with several different existing roads, so that's something that we had to watch out on, because if we don't create a common nodes between the apparently intersecting roads, then what it's going to do is that the two roads will be treated as two separate roads that are not connected, and that can really affect the road network analysis. So that's something that we should be very careful. And if we after we map out a road, if we find out that we forget to make the connection between the newly made road and the existing road, then we can always use the merge function, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So let's say I do a road from here, and supposedly it crossed over with this road. So theoretically, idealistically, whenever you run over another roads, then you should always click on the roads. But say this time I forgot, I just go all the way over. And so there's two ways to fix it. One is to add two separate nodes, one on each roads, and then merge them. So I can demonstrate how you can do it. So go back to selected mode, and then you see a plot sign on the road, and you just left click and hold on to it and drag it, and you'll find out that you actually create a node right here, and you want to place a node right next to or right above the existing road where it intersects. And then you select the other road, existing road, and you see there's direction arrow that pointing one direction. So where the arrow locates, it's actually also the location of the nodes. So you want to basically left click and hold the click, and that way you can move the nodes around. You want to move the nodes right next to the nodes from the other roads where it intersects. And then you can select basically left click on the screen, and then you should be able to drag a box to include both nodes. Then you click on tool tab, and then you should be able to find there's a function called merge nodes, and then you just click on it, and then it will create a common nodes out of those two nodes. So that's one way to build that connection between roads. And the other one, say this time, say I go delete this junction nodes again. And the other way to build that joint connection is actually there's a function called joint. So what you do is really similar. You create a node from one road and place it right on top of the other roads, and then you click on shift key and then click on the roads where it intersects. So now you select the nodes in the road, and you go to tool and click on join nodes to way. So that will also create a common node between these two roads, and then you can always feel free to move it where it fit. So that's our two ways that you can make sure the integrity of the road connections. So after tracing the roads, then we would like to assign tags for the roads. The tags basically tell you the physical characteristic of the roads. So if you go back to the JOSM editor and see the road now is highlighted in red, so it means that it is selected. And you can press on the add button on the right hand side. It allows you to basically key in the variable that you want to inform people about. And I think one of the most important tag is highway. So let me put on highway real quick. Now highway basically tell you the specific type that the road that you just digitized is. So for this one that we just digitized is residential road. So you click OK, and of course there's a lot of many others that you can add in as well. But personally, I think it would be good to also add in surface. So surface basically inform you on the road condition. If it's paved road, or is it unpaved, or is it a dirt road, and whatnot. So for this one, we can assign value of dirt, because actually most of the roads or road types, such as track path, residential, or even secondary, tertiary, primary, a lot of times in Kigoma those roads are dirt surface. And the last one, I think it's also really important to inform people about the source from which you recognize and digitize features from. So source, and in this case we're using digital globe satellite imagery. So just put digital globe satellite imagery. So those are the three I generally put down when I digitize. And so let's say after that you digitize a few more roads, and you would like to save the changes, upload them to the OSM data. Then you can click on this button right here. So when you click on it, it basically runs the validations functions. So what it does is that it basically tells you some of the problems that need to be fixed before you can upload the changes that you made to the OSM data. So usually when I see this, I'll click cancel because you don't want to continue to upload, right? You want to fix those first. And then if you go to the validation window right here, and let me drag this down a little bit, then you'll be able to see that there's a warning, so which means that there are technical problems that you might want to fix before you upload it. And those problems usually stem from careless mistakes, such as someone forgetting to sign a tag, or someone is forget to make the road connection when it needs to. So there are various reasons why you might be receiving those warning notification. So if you look at the right hand side window, you'll see there are 8 problems that we probably need to fix beforehand. If you just go to the crossing ways, and then you can actually right click and zoom to the problems, and that show you where the problematic roads are. So by crossing weighting means that the 2 roads that if you just click it, supposed to cross, supposed to have adjoining nodes but somehow does not. So if you click on this road, it shows you that there's no nodes in between, and for this one neither. So that means that you need to join these 2 roads together. So let's do what we learned before. Put 2 nodes, and then select it and join it. Okay, so that should fix that problems. And let's turn the validation window back on. And the other one is temporary highway type. So let's again zoom to the problem, and then you will see that this highlighted road does not have any. Actually, it does have tag, but the tag for the highway is road. And so generally, when the person who's mapping is not sure about what type of road it is, and that you can actually tag it as road, but usually that doesn't really fly well with validation, because the OSM do want us to be sure what type of road it is, to be more specific, and because that will be more helpful for the community. So let's change the roads to residential, since it's in the residential area. So if you click edit, and then you can change the road to residential. Okay, so that should fix the problems. And you can also go to the next one. So way and nodes near the other highway. So let's go to the problems. So you see these 2 roads. If you zoom out, you can see that this road clearly is connected, but for some reason it wasn't digitized in such way. So let's do the same thing again. That should actually, let me connect it real quick. Alright, so the last one, it says no tag or unconnected nodes without physical tag. So that basically means you have an orphan nodes locating somewhere that's not in any relevant form. So the best thing to do is just to delete it, and then you can just click on delete button, and that should take care of it. If you digitize a road and you find out that it's mistaken, then you can always click on the you can always press the delete button to delete it. And so that should be good. Then let's try it again. So now if you see, if you just click on the upload button, now it's all the problem being fixed, it's been validated. So now you are in the last step before you actually upload the changes. And one thing I would really encourage you guys to do is to give a brief description on what changes you just made, and because it's always a good practice to keep everything in documentations. So here I'm just gonna say digitize residential road from existing road network. And here to specify the data source of your changes, and I think it's always good to include that. And if you know the name of the place where you digitize, then you can always put it in. And now I can upload the changes. Now say upload successful. So the other things I want to show you guys before I close is how to use the measurement plugin to measure the road width. So as we talked about before in the tracing guide, that road width does help to tell the difference between track and path. And so let's show you where to get this. So you go to edit tab and then preference, and then you go to plugin and just type in measurement, then you should be able to see this measurement plugin, and then you just click OK, and then it should download. Since I already had it, so I'm not going to do that. So here you see the roller icon, so that's the measurement. So basically, if you just go down to any roads, let's say I'm zooming down to this road, and what you need to do is to basically just click on draw notes, and then if you see the roads right here, and just try to measure across the road. So click make 2 notes across, and then so if you go onto the right hand side, see the measure value window, it shows you that the line I just made is 1.7 meters. So you can do that to basically gauge the width of the road. That one might, so according to definition, this one, let's actually try to do it again. This one may qualify for path since it's 1.4 meters and it's going out toward the outskirts. So that's just to give you an idea how to utilize this tool to help you differentiate path and track. I hope you guys find this tutorial helpful to digitizations. Thank you very much for watching this video.